Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, Marcia. What incredibly inspiring, inspirational talks we just had from Professor Yunus and Secretary Ban Ki-moon. And just a couple of takeaways I want you all to know. I found it really profound when Professor Yunus talked about his inspiration coming from the work that he does and the joy from doing that work. So please, let's take that with us and not necessarily look for inspiration externally, because it exists within us. And did you just love it when Professor Yunus said that making money can make you happy, but making other people happy is super happiness. Love that. And without a doubt, Secretary Ban Ki-moon is the perfect example that in spite of the incredible work he did while at the UN, look at what he's done outside since he's left the UN. I mean, it's just incredible. The good work does not stop. So, I mean, let's draw inspiration from that. All right, everyone, the good vibe and information and inspiration doesn't stop. We're going to have simultaneous panels happening right now. And on this stage, which is the Ban Ki-moon stage, we're going to have a panel. I'm looking at mobilizing future leaders on the SDGs and how that's taking place. And on the 2030 stage, there will be the panel Business for the Rule of Law is happening. To navigate to the 2030 stage, you need to click stages, and that's on your left, and select 2030 stage. All right, let's go on to our panel discussion here at the Ban Ki-moon stage. And I would like to introduce Monika Froehler, who is the CEO of the Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens. And she's a passionate change maker, advocate, founder, and speaker. She was entrusted to create the BKMC after working at the UN in Geneva, New York, and Vienna, the EU, and the Austrian Foreign Ministry, and in field missions around the globe. She sounds awesome. She is passionate about the implementation of the SDGs and the Paris Climate Agreement. Throughout her career, she managed to support hundreds of women, young people, and communities all over the globe. Example, working in Africa, Latin America, to ban landmines, working to improve hospital care in rural Central Asia and Africa, assisting eco-friendly city planning in Asia, and bettering the living conditions of women in the Middle East and West Africa. Doesn't she just sound awesome? All right, handing over to Monika right now. We can't wait to hear from you.
Shola, thank you so much. This has been an incredible introduction. And I mean, like you, I'm entirely inspired by what Professor Yunus told us and what Ban Ki-moon shared with us. And this day, this RELX SDG Inspiration Day is really very much about that. Getting ideas, getting new thoughts, and being inspired by the people that are talking today. So it's my privilege and pleasure to be joined by three incredible individuals. Today, I have the pleasure of moderating a panel together with Shabnam Siddiqui. She's the Executive Director of UN Global Compact Network India. Secondly, I'm welcoming, hi Shabnam, so nice to have you. Secondly, I'm welcoming Akusua Pepra. She's a consultant currently at Deloitte, Canada, but is also one of the Ban Ki-moon Center scholars. And we are very proud to have you with us today, Akusua. And last but by far not least, Kenneth Kwok. He's an Asia-based Youth Council member of the World Humanitarian Forum and an SDG ambition leader at the UN Global Compact. So we have all the regions of the world almost represented on this panel, and I'm curious to get right into the subject matter. Briefly introduce yourself, but I already have the first question for you. So maybe you introduce and then you already answer the first question, which is, why is inclusive leadership for the SDGs so important? Please, Shabnam, you start.
Hi, thank you so much, Monika, for that introduction, and thank you to SDG Foundation for this Inspiration Day. We have been partnering in this day for a couple of years now, and I think this is the first time we're doing it virtually, or perhaps maybe last year also. So it's a different kind of an experience, literally. My name is Shabnam Siddiqui. As Monika mentioned, I represent the Global Compact Network India. Just before us, the former Secretary General talked about the Global Compact and its role in SDGs and development of the globe in general. I've been working with the Global Compact for the last 10 years, responsible both for the principles and then since 2015 for the implementation of the SDGs. This particular year, 2020 to 2030 was supposed to be the decade of action, but the action, I think, was somewhere happening somewhere else. A virus was much more active than us humans, but I think it's time to get back. And how do we get back? How do we take forward the agenda and ensure that whatever losses have happened in the last like 18 months or so, we can regain that and still achieve the goals by the end of the decade. And with that, I think comes automatically to the question that you asked about inclusive growth, Monika, because the entire concept of SDGs has been about inclusion. Before the Sustainable Development Goals, we had a set of Millennium Development Goals, more or less with the same kind of an ambition to reduce poverty, to close the gender gap, to increase literacy. But at that point of time, it was more a responsibility of the government to take things forward. But we realized that 15 years down the line, a lot of the targets remained unachieved. And that is when, in 2015, when the SDGs came on board, one of the strongest SDGs that we consider in India and within the Global Compact is SDG 17, that is Partnership for the Goals. And when you look at partnership, you talk about diversity, you talk about inclusion, you talk about taking a pause and ensuring when you're making policies, when you're developing strategies and action plans, who is not in the table, who's not in the room, how can we include them? Because, and that is especially the case with a lot of the voiceless and people who are not seen automatically, and you have to think beyond. So that is the kind of inclusiveness is important, because a leadership that is not inclusive will not go far. So I think inclusiveness is at the bottom, or it's the base that strengthens the entire journey and whatever we build on it. So that is what I would like to start with, Monika. Thanks.
Shabnam, this is excellent, and I hope we hear more about how you do that. But over to Akosua, Petra, and give us your insights into inclusive leadership. I mean, you are such an inclusive leader. How? Why? And tell us about your inspiration and who you are.
Thank you very much, Monika. I'm really privileged to be here, and I'm really happy to be supporting on this panel. I'm personally a Global Citizen Scholar for 2020, ended not too long ago. It's amazing to know my project is still continuing up until now. So I am Akosua Petra, and as I was introduced, I currently work as an operations consultant in Deloitte, Canada. But beyond that, my work extends a lot into the sustainability space, into circular economy, and in the nonprofit world, really focused on women, youth development, and children in Ghana. And it's really such a privilege to be here. And I really love our panel. I really love everything that everybody is bringing on. And I think it's it really reflects exactly the question that you're asking, Monika, around inclusive leadership. I think we have come to realize that a lot of experiences had been left off the table. A lot of people, a lot of voices were not being brought into the conversations. And we have, over the years, had to come and correct ourselves as a race, as a human population, to say that voices need to be brought in, shared experiences need to be brought in, and that is the only way forward in achieving the global good. And I think that is where we are here at this point in time. And the SDGs really, as Shabnam said, incorporates that in terms of the partnerships. We are seeing partnerships across continents. We're seeing across different age groups and genders. We're looking at bringing indigenous people, women, and a lot of these have including the global south, which we know for a very long time was not a very active participant in a lot of the negotiations, in a lot of the implementation arrangements that were done, in a lot of the funding flows that was happening within the development space. So I'm really happy that you asked this question to set it off and saying that we bring a lot onto the table. Would I be here? Would be a great question that I would ask. And so I think that is the way forward. We are seeing a lot of benefits from that, and we're hoping that it will not just be an agenda to 2030. We are hoping that is where 2030 is just the launching pad to move to the sky. So that's what I have to say about that.
I like your idea of the launching pad. And looking at what Professor Yunus told us, we need 3 zeros and that will probably not be achieved by 2030. I think lots is still up there for us. And indeed, both of you emphasized we need everyone around the table. We need to include everyone. Kenneth, I know you are a beacon of hope in that regard because you are looping in so many people. You are a leader. You have been representing the World Economic Forum. You have been really a global leader on the SDGs in your youth segment. Tell us about why inclusive leadership is so important to you and why is it so important for the SDGs?
Well, first of all, I'm just a humble student. And that's how I live my life every day because there's so much to learn. Hello, everyone. My name is Kenneth. I am based in Hong Kong, and I run Global Citizen Capital as well as Kids for SDGs. First of all, thank you so much for having me as part of the SDG Inspiration Day. And I'm here not to inspire. I'm here to be inspired. And in the first hour, my brain is already, abuzz. So that has been a fantastic feeling. Yes, I am a very proud youth council member. Please don't judge my looks. I'm trying to be as young at heart as much as I can of the World Humanitarian Forum, which is frankly the world's most passionate organizational community of young change makers advancing human rights, advancing tech for good, advancing healthcare for all, and all these initiatives. And I cannot call myself a prouder member of that organization. At the World Economic Forum, I'm very humbled to be recognized as an uplink innovator for crowdsourcing innovation to advance the SDGs. I'm also a global innovator for trying to, apply some fourth industrial revolution technology to achieving digital inclusion. And finally, my heart rests with the fact that when I founded Kids for SDGs, I never thought for a million years that it's high school students and primary school students that inspire me every day to become a better global citizen. And when talking about inclusive leadership, I'll give you a very quick answer. It's because the youth, our next generation, demands it. And I'm here to represent their voices to the best of my capability. And I'm so honored to I look forward to learning from everyone at this panel. Thank you so much, Monika.
Thanks, Kenneth. You have all given incredible insights into who you are and what you do. But of course, I want to get down to the stories that we will take away with us. And so let me ask you, gender equality, Shabnam, has played an important role. You were talking about inclusivity before and diversity. So why is gender equality to improve businesses so important to you? And maybe can you illustrate it with a story?
Sure, Monika. I think across the globe, in general, women earn less, they save less, they hold less secure jobs, and are more likely to be employed in the informal sector. And because they have less access to any kind of social protection, and in many cases also are running single parent households, their capacity to absorb any kind of transition or shock, as we have seen recently, is tremendous. So with those kind of divides that have always been there, so the kind of pre-existing inequalities that was there before the pandemic got further exposed, and vulnerabilities came to the fore. So that has been both for the formal and informal sector. In the formal sector, when jobs were lost, women were the ones who had to step back, and because they had needed to take care of their households, especially in our kinds of regions where taking care of children, taking care of the elderly in the families, all became a part of the woman's expanded unpaid work kind of a thing. And with that, the kind of challenges and now with a lot of digitalization happening, the fourth industrial revolution that Kenneth was talking about, the kind of mismatch in skills that are required going forward is something that women are suffering to the core, especially when they are trying to get re-employed. So in that sense, the challenges that of gender that women are facing is much more. But I also want to highlight that especially when we talk about gender, we somehow talk about only the man-woman binary. So we're not talking about the gender in its complete domain, and we many a times get away with it. So that's what we try to do, and it connects with your earlier question of inclusivity. So Global Compact Network India, for example, does the Gender Equality Summit every year. This year we did our 4th summit. And again, like the idea was that as Global Compact is against all male panels that we call manels, so we have taken a stand against not being a part of any manel. We also said that we also would not like to be part of an all women panel, because as soon as you talk about a certain skill set, then you have all women talking about women's right and other aspects. So we have gone against that. But this year we pushed our barrier further, and we said, what about the third gender? What about other genders? What about gender identifications? And we have a core committee as such of the summit, and we told them that we needed people from different genders represented on the panel, and we gave them a special voice. And the special voice was so the first, for example, the first recommendations came of all the advocacy, all the advocates who were working for the rights of the third gender. And I said, they are doing commendable work. We respect their work, but I don't want to hear the advocates. I want to hear directly from the third gender. And with that, we started this new thing about, and when we started looking, we did find exceptional people. Their struggles are so much more different. We speak about the man-woman challenges, but many people in the other gender are still maybe 20, 30 years back where the women's rights and women's movement was. So just making a conscious decision to see who's not in the room and trying to be as inclusive as possible is something that we have been trying to do for gender. And then I think also what happens with gender and the entire discussion is missing out on the youth. Because I don't know about other countries, but in our cultures, we take the youth too lightly. So like, the kind of, they're not meant to be part of serious policy briefings or discussions or to take things forward. They are somebody that we need to take care of and take things forward. And we said, no, they need to be part of the entire discussion as such. And I personally, so like, I'm a big advocate of environment, and I agreed, and I love working with children in general. They are such out-of-the-box thinkers. I was interviewed on environment and challenges by 5th graders. 3 5th graders interviewed me on television, like, on Zoom. And the kind of questions they asked me, I was completely bowled over. They asked me about plastic, they asked me about recycling, they asked me about ocean waste and everything. And like in general, we would not have thought that 5th graders would actually think and so deeply or ask about these. So I think for us as adults and as us as established professionals, we need to take a step back and see like who else is there and how to get them more involved. So gender and youth and even young children, like those 5th graders and those 7th graders and 9th graders that I'm speaking to are completely, and I think Kenneth will have much more experience with that, are completely out of the box. So they challenge us in many more ways.
Yeah, Shabnam, thank you so much. This is the perfect segue to actually, I see Kenneth already moving because he has so many stories to tell in this regard, and also Akosua. So Kenneth, tell us about the engagement with the small ones, with the students, but then even with youth leaders in matters of SDGs.
No, I'm just sorry. I'm just so busy nodding my head, because it is. By the way, I have to say, I spent the last 6 months completing the first ever UN Global Compact SDG Ambition Accelerator. That made me feel young again. Sitting down with my team doing homework, I was like, wow, brings me back. So
tell us a bit more about, Kenneth, what that is, because probably not everyone in the audience knows. So the Ambition Accelerator, what is it?
Yeah, the SDG Ambition Accelerator essentially is a 6-month program offered to UN Global Compact members all around the world to help them transform their organizations, whether it's for-profit or non-profit, to advance SDGs. And it starts with, you choosing a macro theme, like for me is net zero, and distilling into the steps, right? The metrics, the benchmarks, all the way down to, talent recruiting, cost, value chain, expanding. So I haven't been so academically focused for quite some time at my humble age. But it brings back memories. And most importantly, you meet a network of amazing global advocates who are all united to advance real SDG ambition, because trust me, we just appointed two, in fact, sustainability advisors to our portfolio companies just to drive change based on what we learned at SDG ambition. And I'm very, very honored to have participated at. So thank you.
Super cool, Kenneth, because it doesn't only stay seemingly at the theoretical level, but it's then implemented. So it's the network that is created and people are actually taking the action forward, right?
Yeah. It's great because it's taught in a way where both senior management, all the way, when we talk about inclusive leadership, right, all the way down to, you know, first year analysts can learn from. And that's what is so beautiful about this framework. And it brings me to the point, if I may, about youth, because we were just thinking we need a junior edition for this SDG Ambition Accelerator. So I'm going to send you an email later, Shabnam. Let's make it happen, right? But on education for me, I'll give one storytelling, I suppose, if I may. I work with this amazing school called Chinese International School in Hong Kong. And for the first time, a high school led by high school students did a full-blown school sustainability audit. It was 200-something pages. They literally analyzed everything up and down from the school, including, again, its supply chain, value chain, all that, to identify areas where a high school could become more advancing SDGs. And, you know, Mr. Alexander Zhang, who is the head of communication and outreach, has this call to action. Again, a high school student. And I'll quote him: "Sustainable development is not an abstract concept, but rather an interdisciplinary bridge. Use your passions to make a difference." I mean, high school students. I'm like, when I was in high school, I was like, where's my computer game? Yay, right? But again, there's hope in us and there's optimism because of how youth is advancing SDG ambitions. And when I say SDG inspiration, I'm so happy to see other youth voices represented. But yes, I'll stop there because I want to pass the mic to an actual global citizen leader, and I can't wait to learn more from you.
That's your segue, Akosua, because you are definitely one of those. Please tell us about how can we support young people? How did you support young people? You're still muted, Akosua. You have to unmute yourself, I think, still. Hang on.
Thank you very much. I think unmute yourself is becoming our next buzzword now. But thank you very much, Monika, again, for that. I think I'm not going to waste time on how youth are agents of change and actors of change within not only the sustainable development goals like space, but just, you know, generally across development across different development paths around the world. And we know that there's a lot of incredible evidence that backs that. And I happen to spend, you know, most of my life in Ghana and much more recently here in Canada. And so I think I'm seeing that difference, you know, like the global north and the global south in terms of the challenges and the barriers, and just exactly how we can support. I mean, from where I stand and from my standpoint, I have to say. And one of the things that I'm seeing, and I think Shabnam already mentioned that most of the time we are not involving youth in the strategy and in the planning. Right, and I see that. I would give a very specific example. I got involved in the Paris Agreement negotiations, really in the work program with going to SB 48 and all of that. And one thing that I saw is I went to the negotiations and as a civil society observer, and I realized that the delegates from some of the countries that I know from like even like, a lot of the countries in Africa, like they would come with no youth representatives within the delegation. And yet still, when you go back and you read some of the ways that they are meeting the targets, you're seeing a lot of stories and a lot of gathering of data from work happening on locally by youth. So youth are seen as agents of implementation, but are not necessarily involved in the strategy, in the planning around the table, right? So it's like we make these commitments and then we then go and then say, oh, great, you people are great at implementing. And so I think it's time we begin to switch that over and begin to see youth as really important stakeholders in strategy and planning. I think that other thing that I would say is respecting youth voices, which Shabnam has already said, and I'll just, and because she said it so well, I'll just pass over that and go to the next one, which is access to capital, network, and exposure and sponsorship. I think that that is a really major barrier, especially in the global south. Access to capital, access to funding, financing. I see that it's something that it's across all spaces where you have to prove some level of credibility and track record to have access to some funding. The question becomes, where do you get that if nobody is ready to give you those opportunities? So I think I'll just bring it all together in one single solution, which I think would really help, which is sponsorship, that we need to begin to sponsor youth. And sponsorship goes beyond mentorship, which is like, oh, I want to mentor you, I want to give you advice, but it's like, I want to advocate for you. I want to as a person of the older generation, I want to be able to go into rooms and advocate for you and speak for you and encourage you and actually expose you to my network. And I think that's really the most powerful thing that we can do to support youth as agents of change. Like all of us, Monika, Shabnam, all the people watching me, saying there's someone within the community, a young person who's really passionate and is doing something. I want to help her, I want to help him in this way, and I want to be able to connect him to my network. I want to be able to really advocate for this person. I want to stand someone and say, something, I will guarantee for you, and so that you can be able to do that work. So I think that really would bridge a lot of those gaps in terms of access to capital, to network, to exposure, and also bringing you to the table as part of the strategy and the planning process. Yeah.
I think this is brilliant. We have a collection of amazing ideas here. I want to summarize. We had the don't participate in manuals and include the third gender. This was a brilliant appeal by Shabnam, and she's putting it into practice. We had the create the youth ambition challenge. So let's not only stick to the sort of elderly space, but rather let's have a youth ambition challenge. Kenneth, thanks for that idea. And then now you, Akosua, you said that we do need something like sponsorship, and actually instead of just mentorship. So there needs to be a financial and sort of a sustainable component to that as well. And I'm wondering, does any of you want to react to someone else's suggestion at this stage? Yeah, Akosua, go for it. Shabnam, go for it.
Akosua, please go ahead.
So I wanted to really come into exactly what Shabnam said, which is, as we continue to talk about manuals, we forgot and we sometimes you go ahead and you see also I don't know how I'll say that, but like also all women panels or all women spaces, and we're not bringing other voices in. So it's really in trying to solve one problem, we need to make sure we are not just stuck on that, and we are really looking at the whole picture and making sure we're not creating new problems, and we are not really taking that and switching it over and creating another dynamic. And so that's one of the things that I have to say completely loved about what she said.
And I just wanted to add, because the sponsorship idea is extremely crucial, because the kind of hand holding, and that is where the inclusive aspect and partnership for the goals is important. Because what the Global Compact and the Global Compact businesses really do well is thinking out of the box and getting new spirit and new ideas into sustainable development beyond what the governments can do, which was what was the challenge of the Millennium Development Goals. But going beyond that, I think what we are doing in India and doing it decently is that we have a lot of these innovations and innovators, and we have a young SDG pioneers initiative that we have also started. So the idea is to catch them young, because like if between the ages of 18 and 25, if they have understood the concept of SDGs, 2030 onwards, maybe the goal post will shift a bit, but it will only get more specific. So while MDGs were general, SDGs were more focused. Whatever goalpost comes after 2030 will be more specific. We are creating a generation that is equipped to handle the challenges and to take it well. So I think from the business angle, the entire concept of sponsorship should be seen as an investment for the future. So when we're talking about investing in SDGs, I think investing in the ideas of a generation that cannot raise its own funds at this moment is extremely crucial as we go ahead and plan the next decade or so.
Very true, very true. Kenneth, do you still have a comment to the next decade?
No, I'm just, digesting on the fact what Akosua said about sponsorship. Because for us, we try to think of capital as 5 different types of capital, right? You have financial, and then of course you have manufactured, nature, social, human, and all that. So I'm just thinking in my mind, how can we advance even more multi-stakeholder partnerships? How can we advance intergenerational learning and know-how sharing? And more importantly, as you said, we have to look after social innovators, right? At the forum, I'm very happy to actually, as part of my work with the World Humanitarian Forum as well, we work with a lot of social innovators, right? We try to empower them in ways that are innovative, that are inclusive and impactful, so that even the most marginalized within those communities can get the assistance they need, especially as we've all seen how brutal a pandemic can be, especially for those who are left behind. So again, just so many things to think about, and very grateful for this. Yeah.
I have another challenge for the three of you. You panelists have to now endure one of my rapid fire exercises. I will give you each one sentence and I would like you to complete it. And I will just start with you, Shabnam, to get the first challenge, which is, how would you complete the sentence, I still dream about ...
So I still dream about this creation of a business biodiversity alliance, because if we are to tackle climate change, if we are to tackle the race to net zero and stuff, it cannot be done by one company, one country, or one region alone. And through collective action, I dream about a business case, uniting business, collective action to take this entire agenda forward.
Wonderful. I have a different challenge to you, Akosua. The sentence for you is, I am ambitious about ...
I am ambitious about youth around the world being able to leverage their full capability to contribute to their communities. And that's exactly it, that every youth with their ambition, because we do have a lot, and before it gets snuffed out, that we will be able to leverage our full potential to really contribute to our local communities.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Kenneth, your challenge is, your sentence is, I am inspired by ...
I am inspired by youth as young as 6 years old who show me every day 180 ways to become more carbon neutral and carbon friendly. And again, that's the future. And if 6-year-olds can live like that, we adults definitely can.
Lovely. We will almost end on this because I have one last task for you. I want you to tell me, to complete the sentence, each of you, in 2030, the world will. And let's start with Shabnam. In 2030, the world will
hopefully be a bit much better than today, with people having both realized the challenges, having had an opportunity to look at alternate living and trying to do something innovative to sustain that kind of living.
Fingers crossed. Akosua, in 2030, the world will?
The world would be a place where we can tolerate each other and listen to each other.
Huh, nice one. Got goosebumps. And Kenneth, in 2030, the world will?
Right. By 2030, it will be mandatory that education for sustainable development and global citizenship is part of everyone's education and curriculum, starting in primary school.
I love that. The BKMC, the Ban Ki-moon Center, is working for just that. So I want to thank all of you for this very enlightening and insightful talk that we had. RELX SDG Inspiration Day. I hope that this initiative continues. And thank you so much for all of the inspiration that you have shared with the audience today. We will close here and I hand back to Shola.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's just incredible. Monika and to Patrick, who both of you who moderated such fantastic panels. I want to say huge thank you for the insightful contributions from our panelists. Brilliant. I think we're all going away with so much from what we've heard. And I just loved hearing how passionate you all sound even now, and you've been doing this for so long. So please keep on and empower to what you're doing.